Welcome to the AVAIL podcast, where we dig deep and talk about the art of leadership. My name is Virgil Sierra, and today we're sitting down with Pastor Chris Sonksen. Chris is the CEO and founder of Church Boom, an amazing pastor with decades of experience. And today we're going to discuss the mission of Church Boom, the vision for churches across America that are going to be really, really helpful for you. So lean in, leaders, and let's get started. As always, it's a pleasure to be here with you, everybody. I'm Virgil Sierra, lead pastor of Vertical Church, and we are with Pastor Chris Sonksen. Pastor Chris, you and I, we're friends here on AVAIL, my friend. How does it feel to be back on AVAIL?
Oh, I love it. It's always good to hang out with you. You always got so much cool energy. And I love it. How do you say your last name? Sierra?
Sierra.
Sierra. There you go. That's a powerful sounding name. Virgil Sierra.
If you want to give it more power, you do Sierra.
Sierra. Virgil Sierra. It just sounds like you're either just some incredible, I don't know, mobster or an NFL running back. I don't know which one it is, but you're one of the two.
I'm gonna keep the audience in suspense.
In suspense.
Pastor Chris, I want to just mention this. I was telling you before we started that you're a great blessing to me as a pastor, because I've been able to lean in to some of your resources, some of your podcasts, and the way you sit down with pastors and just listen and help, like listen. And from your experience and from the knowledge that God has that you've obtained and the experience that God has given you as a pastor for so many years, you just listen. Whether they're younger pastors, older pastors, big churches, medium churches, small churches, your input is helping in so many ways. So I'm thankful for you.
Hey, well, I appreciate that. That's very kind of you. It's an honor to serve the kingdom of God by serving pastors. My heart is always to be the pastor's biggest fan and biggest cheerleader.
Yeah, I love that.
That's our heart. That's what we want to do.
We're going to talk about Church Boom, which I know is part of your heartbeat right now. But, for our AVAIL audience that maybe hasn't heard some of our previous interviews and podcasts that we've done together, tell us a little bit about yourself, where you are, and what you're doing.
Yeah. So I live in Southern California, San Clemente Beach. This is the coast that doesn't get the hurricanes, unlike you in Florida, who does. We don't. Yeah, we made fun of a couple of years ago. A buddy of mine in Florida, they had a hurricane, and it was pretty mild. But he's always talking about hurricanes. We're talking about how we don't get hurricanes. And then in my backyard, my lawn chair fell over, and I took a picture of it and I put, "We will rebuild."
Hey,
we're coming in hot over here. That's horrible. But he's a buddy of mine, so we're always ripping on each other. We will rebuild. But anyway, I live in San Clemente, California, Southern California. I'm the founding pastor of South Hills Church. We have 12 locations. I don't do a lot of the day-to-day as much anymore. Made the executive pastor the lead pastor, and so I do kind of more global expansion. We do Church Boom. We coach pastors and rescue churches. That's what we do. Two things we do is coach pastors and rescue churches, and been married for a long time. How many years is it now? 33 years. 33 years, 2 kids, 2 grandkids, and grandchildren is the absolute best thing on the planet. It is. Oh my gosh! I got to spend a couple hours with them yesterday, and I was like, "This is amazing. It's so much better than parenting." And it's a gift from God for you not killing your own kid. That's really what it is. Oh, it is. It is. I was holding my daughter or my granddaughter recently, and my adult son says to me, "Dad, it's like you love her more." I said, "No, it's not like I do. I do." I said, "You had a good run. It's over for you."
Oh, Lordy. I see a lot of grandparents in that same mode.
Oh, it's the best. And so anyway, yeah, that's kind of the nutshell version of it. And wrote a bunch of books and lead Church Boom and still working with South Hills to keep moving us forward as a founder. And
that's great.
That's where most of my life is spent. Yeah.
So we'll talk a little bit more about the resources and all that, even some of your books. But I want to just ask, I guess, on the kickoff here, talk to us about Church Boom. Somebody who's leaning in right now and saying, "What is that? What's Church Boom at its core?
Yep.
What's the mission, and why did you start Church Boom?"
Yeah. So at the core, as I shared, at the core is we coach pastors and rescue churches. So we've got several lanes that we kind of operate in, kind of several initiatives, if you will, but they all face to one thing. We want to coach pastors and rescue churches. Really launched independently just a few years ago, but it launched unofficially about 8-9 years ago. People kept calling and how you growing the church and what are you doing and how do you grow a church and la la la. And finally it was like, okay, we can't take all these one-on-one calls. Let's put them into a group. And then, okay, well, let's put a second group together. And then like, okay, well, Everybody wants their church to boom, so let's call something called Church Boom, and let's see what we can do. And so we just launched something called Church Boom, just the idea that we want it to boom and move forward and move up. And since that, we've launched a lot of initiatives. We launched our rescue initiative. We rescue churches that are under 100, try to get them over 100. We do a whole system for that, and we help them. But that's the essence of it. Is
Yeah.
we want to coach pastors and we want to rescue churches.
Yeah. Did you ever, as you rewind the video of your life, let's just say to the first couple of years of pastoring and all that, did you ever envision yourself doing what you're doing through Church Boom now?
No, I didn't. I didn't. I get asked that every now and then. I'd like to be like this. The Lord gave me a vision, and this is what's going to happen. Yeah, I didn't have it like that. I'm not Walt Disney. I have some big vision. I just, honestly, one of my closest friends in the world always says, "Follow the miracle," and he says, "See where God's moving. See what God's doing." And so we launched a church. Then we launched several churches. Then we got up to a certain amount. Then we launched this thing called Church Boom. And then we moved it out of South Hills, and then God just seemed to bless it. And then all of a sudden we started rescuing churches. And so I can't say, hey, 15 years ago I saw this.
Mm.
I do know that I felt like I was to invest in leaders. I knew I wanted to invest in leaders.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know how it looked. So I would say yes to the investing in leaders, but I didn't have like this big picture of how it would all
Right.
look. I just felt like God was just kind of moving in that area, and we moved with him.
Now you mentioned about follow the miracle, which is basic. Where's God doing something, right? And or where is there a need for God to do something? Can you, or what would you say what were some of the significant challenges that you noticed pastors facing that kind of push you to say, okay, we got to do this?
Well, a couple things. One is just just the amount of churches that feel stuck, the amount of pastors that feel stuck. The fact that there's a massive decline in church attendance.
Mm-hmm.
We're closing 2,000 churches for every 1,000 we open, which is huge when you stop and think about that.
Yep.
2,000 churches close for every 1,000 that open. We're going the
Wow.
wrong way. And at the core of it, I just saw pastors that were a couple things. One, they felt stuck. Two, they didn't have the answer, and they don't know what to do. And I think they felt a little discouraged. We meet a lot of pastors like, yeah, try everything. It doesn't seem to work, and can't get my church to grow. I think it's 80 some odd percent of all churches are what is it, 75 or 80 something like that. Percent of churches are under 100.
Yeah.
So, when you're down that low, you could have the threat of shutting your door. So we wanted to create a way to help pastors grow and see their ministries grow and see their ministries flourish and help them reach their potential. And I think in the meantime, or not in the meantime, in the middle of it, we help to restore confidence because I see that a lot. I think pastors struggle with that.
All right, Pastor Chris, you just mentioned something that caught my attention because this stat about 2,000 churches close for every 1,000 churches that open. This is crazy, first of all. But I've always thought about one side of this equation, but I'm seeing that Church Boom is thinking about the other side. I've always thought we need to raise up the amount of life-giving churches that are being planted. Because imagine if 2,000 are closing, only 1,000 are opening. But what you're proposing is it's both and, right? We have to open up and plant more life-giving churches, but we also have to help more churches from stopping them from closing their doors. Is
Yep.
that right?
Yeah, I think that both need to happen. I'm a huge fan of launching churches. I mean, I work with CMN, ARC, love those guys. Hey man, let's launch. I'm a church planner myself. I love it.
Yeah.
But man, why can't we launch and rescue? Why can't we
Wow.
close the back door? Why can't we have 2,000 churches opening and staying open for every 1,000 that close, or vice versa? In other words, try to change the trajectory of everything. And I think that it can be done. I mean, but I think both are important. Also, if done right, I mean, think about it. If you plant a church, I mean, you truly plant a church, you do the whole thing, you get a school, you meet in the school, you're probably in for two to $300,000 all said and done for the first year.
Hmm.
You got to raise money, buy equipment, do all that. Here's this church that has a building. Here's this church that has Southern California, a guy that has a church in Southern California, his building, no matter what in Southern California, is probably worth $5 million. This church planner, how many years is it going to be before he can have that? And so it's not just, I think, both sides, it's also the resources. And to help rescue a church, honestly, is a lot cheaper than it is starting one.
Wow. Wow. That's
Yeah,
significant.
do both.
Wow.
I
Yeah,
would do both.
that's
I think we should do both.
yeah,
Absolutely.
and that's huge. And that point is very valid. It's cheaper to rescue a church than it is to plant a brand new one. I mean, wouldn't the question there be where's the pastor's heart? Kind of the
Yeah,
leader.
of course. Yeah, I mean, yeah, for sure. Because we always say this, Virgil, is that we say we don't work with those that need it. We work with those that want it.
Want it.
Fact is,
Mm,
there's a lot of people that are like, nope, they're fine. I mean, they are completely fine with 50 people. They got a bunch of money in the bank, maybe because they sold something. They're fine, and there's nothing. That's okay. Well, it's not. I don't think it's okay, but that's not. We're not gonna work. We're not gonna work with those people
right.
because they don't want it. So we work with
Yeah.
those that want it, and there's enough out there that want it. There's thousands.
Yeah. 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 I guess that's the truth. I was talking to a friend recently, real recent conversation. That whole dynamic of what happens when what happened to me. I was preaching for a friend in Phoenix, Arizona. It's their third. It was their third anniversary. They took me to eat tacos, Pastor Chris, and the tacos were great. But the funny thing was, is like, oh, this used to be a church. So we walk into a building. It used to be a church. The stained glass windows. They even have things on the walls that are very like of that denomination from that time. And then it's a restaurant and a big bar on the end. And on the one hand, like, okay, yeah, people that look at design, oh, this is a cool restaurant in a church. But then the sad part for me was this was a church,
That's
and
right.
now it's a restaurant and a bar.
Yep. Yep.
And I guess my question for you, Pastor Chris, because you've kind of been in this world of rescuing and church boom and coaching. Um, why? What are some of the culprits of a church that's beginning to not only decline but really
Yeah.
just nosedive?
So a couple of things I think is I think you might have a pastor that is just not willing to do the work, and I'm not being mean.
Sure.
That's just one of the issues. Um, I think that you have no vision at a church often. I think you have a group of people like board members and key leaders that will choose preference over purpose. I think that's a big issue. Often it's just mind blowing how toxic churches can get. And even at the church of 50, there's one or two high level givers, high level board members, high level whatever, that are just holding the church hostage.
Mm,
And sat in a meeting a while back trying to help a church. They were thinking about kind of attaching with another church, multi-site, kind of help
hmm.
infuse them with vision and all that. And it seemed to be going well. I was in the room, and a lady, probably, I don't know, late 70s, early 80s, stood up and said, I'm voting against this. I grew up in this church. It's always been this size. It will always be this size. And when I die, it'll be this size. And I'm not doing anything to become part of another church. And it went that
Wow.
way. And it'll die. Uh,
Yep.
One thing I always say, Virgil, is there's a little thing I do called 6 phases of a church, and the last phase is slow death. And the key word, I think, is not death, but slow. Uh,
Right.
a church doesn't die in a week. It dies over a period of 2 or 3 or 4 years, 5 years, 8 years, whatever. It's dying. The death just hasn't showed up yet.
Hmm.
And I see that all the time. And
Yeah.
again, no vision, not willing to do the work, not willing to change. One thing I always say is that, man, if you want to grow, it's going to come down to two things: your willingness to change and your tolerance of pain. Those two things: willingness to change, tolerance of pain.
Hmm.
And I don't know, I think there's some guys out there that just don't want to face that.
Yeah, that's very true. All right, so let's talk about the ones that do.
Yeah.
Let's talk about the coaching component of Church Boom that you guys do.
Yeah.
Um, can you maybe give a few examples of, for example, how you customize the coaching to a pastor and a church to where they're at.
Yep. So there's two sides of our coaching. One is the rescue side. If you're a church under 100, we're going to coach you for a whole year for free. We're going to send you on a retreat for free. We pay for all of it. If you're a church under 100 and you're facing some struggles, we want to bless you. If it's a church that, bigger, has some resources, they want executive coaching, that's the other lane that we work in. We work in the lane of executive coaching. So there's two lanes. One thing is, I think when we started about 8-9 years ago, we just sort of cookie cuttered it. Like, okay, here's a church of 500. Let's walk through a vision frame. Let's walk through their mission, vision, values, all that. And then it was, and not that that's not great. It's great, but I just began to realize about 5-6 years ago, I was like, we're walking into churches that on the executive coaching, it's a paid service, whatever. They're larger churches, 300, 500, 1,000, 5,000, whatever, and they don't need, every one of them is a little bit different. Some of them aren't like in mission and vision and values. Some of them they're very toxic.
Right.
Some of them they have no strategy whatsoever. Some of them are not getting enough first time guests. You're not going to grow. It's a ratio game. It's a numbers game. Some of them are not getting enough people plugged in after they get involved in the church, what we call the speed of engagement. So we find, what I like to do is I meet with the pastor, talk to him all about the church, or one of our team members do. Talk about the church, what's great, what's not, what's working, what's not, what are the numbers at, where is it at, what do you want to accomplish? And then we create a plan and we start going after it. Okay, here's where the 3 major problems are. Let's take the next 6 months and resolve these problems. And let's get the church to grow. And so we moved away from cookie cutter and we just went to, let me find out what's going on in your church and let's see if we can fix it.
Yeah, that's cool. I think that's hopeful for maybe a pastor or a church who's listening right now who maybe says, well, maybe we're different, or our region is complicated, or these are some of the things that we run into. So you guys customize it for them.
100%. Yeah, every place is different and every issue is different. We might deal with 6 months of just, a staff that's misaligned, a pastor that won't make tough decisions, a board member who's misaligned. I mean, no reason to be talking about this until we get this right. Then you walk in and go, man, you guys are aligned. Man, you love each other. You love the local church. You love your pastor. You just don't have any strategy in place. So let's figure that out. So it's really, they don't have leadership ladders. They don't have volunteer ladders and moving people through volunteers. Their generosity is lacking. So
sure,
that's where we come in and we look at it and say, let's solve those problems, whatever those problems may be.
Yeah, that's good. Can you maybe share with us a couple of examples, for example, of maybe a church or two that were in trouble when you found them, or when they reached out to you, and how did Church Boom come in and kind of lift up from the situation they were in?
Yeah, I got one I'm thinking of in Indiana and one in Ohio. One on the rescue side in Indiana. So I'll talk rescue and then I'll talk executive. One on the rescue side calls us up. Short story is I got 20 people left in my church. I'm 2 months behind. We're going to give it back to the bank unless you guys think you can help us. And he was crying on the phone, a lot of tears on the phone, and really sad. And we said, hey, don't give up. We think we can help you. And now, fast forward, I was there, 3 or 4 months ago. They wanted to do a Rescue Sunday, which is, a chance for people to give and pay it forward and rescue other churches. This is a church that was 20, dying, about to go back to the bank. The day I was there, they had 404.
Wow.
And we helped them get there. And
wow.
I don't think it was because we're smart or brilliant. I always say this, Virgil, is I don't think we're smarter than anybody. I just think we have a better view than you. Because you could probably walk into some situation that I'm in and go like this. I always say you're on the second level of the football field.
Yeah.
You radio down to the quarterback. The guy in the second level drinking Diet Cokes and popping peanuts while he's going like this for the Rams or whatever team. He's definitely not better than the quarterback, but he does have a better view.
Right.
And I think that's the difference. I think you could walk into my situation and go, there's something. I'm like, oh man, I never thought of that. And so I don't think we're all smart or anything. It's just, hey, Indiana church, do this, do that, fix that, move this, change that, put them in the system, loved on them, church grew. That was a rescue church. It was dying, ready to close. It would have been gone out of that community forever. Now it's not. Now flip over to the executive coaching. much larger situation. So I think of a church in Ohio runs, I don't know, was running maybe 500 when we met them, 550, something like that. 600, and we started coaching them. There were moves to be made in leadership. There were strategies that needed to be put in place. There was focus that needed to happen. Now, today, they have not one but two campuses, not 550, but 1,500 people.
Wow.
And so on the executive side, it radically worked. It's funny though on the executive side because it's a paid. The other thing is free if you're under 100 and whatever. But it's funny it's so funny to me on the executive side. I had a guy a while back. I don't know why I'm just telling you this story. It's pointless, but maybe we'll get a laugh out of it. But we coached the guy for a year. I personally coached him. We have a lot of coaches. I personally coached him. About a year and a half into it, his giving was up $250,000 for 1 year.
Wow.
Up. Over and above
Right.
normal budget's about 2 million. It was 2.25. And he goes, I think we're good. We probably don't need any more coaching, and I think we're good. And I'm like, when do you arrive that you're good? And by the way, you paid us this. We helped you bring in this. Like, it cracks me up. People in executive coaching. I'm like, I have two coaches in my life. I've had them for over 10 years.
Wow.
I still get coached. I think
Yeah.
everybody says they have a mentor. I got a mentor. I got a Bible college professor. I got this old man, and he's really just loved me. No, you have a spiritual mentor, which is awesome and amazing.
Yeah.
I have a spiritual mentor, but growing churches is not his thing.
Right.
But he's that place in my life. Now I got two other guys that work independently. I bounce off of them: leadership, organization, next move, because I need them in my life.
Yeah.
And I don't think that I don't think we would be here. I think God obviously is in control, but I don't, cracks me up when people don't get coaching. I'm like, dude, I guess you could get to second base in 5 years from when you're at first, but wouldn't you have to get there in 8 months?
Yeah.
I don't know. It's just funny to me, but that's the difference. We've seen them work in both cases, both in rescue. And we just had last week, 79 more churches join the rescue. 79 more
Wow.
churches want to be rescued just last week.
Wow.
So it's growing.
Wow.
A lot.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome. Hey, kind of on a personal side,
Yeah.
Pastor Chris, what's your favorite thing about this? Because okay, let me just clarify. How
Yeah.
many years of pastoring before kind of really going headfirst into this?
Probably 22.
Yeah. 22 years, over 2 decades of pastoring, and you're still pastoring, just
Yeah.
not in that lead
Yeah, right.
role on the day to day,
Yeah.
but obviously in this season, in this chapter of your life, this is kind of a big part of it. What's your favorite thing about it? What do you love doing? Why do you love this?
Well, I was asked yesterday what my favorite thing is that I hear. And it's when people say to me or to one of our team, we have a lot of coaches, I don't know, 30, 40, 50 coaches, whatever we have now. And we have a pretty good sized team. We're pretty busy. We got a lot of team members, leaders. But I was asked that yesterday, and I told the person, I love when someone says to one of our team members, no one believes in me like you guys do. That honestly, I know that sounds like I'm trying to be emotional or trying to be like, oh, wow, like trying to be, I don't know, whatever. But it really is that. I love the mission. I believe in the local church. I don't want to become the next Europe.
Yep.
And we're headed there. You can't lose 2,000 churches for every 1,000 open. And we just think, oh, it says God bless America, one nation under God. I'm like, that's what Europe used to say to a degree many, many years ago. They don't anymore.
Right.
We'll become that if we're not careful. So one, there's an incredible, Virgil, there's incredible urgency behind it. Like, this is a sleeping giant. We better fix this.
Yep.
Secondly is I really, really love when someone says, no one believes me like you guys. No one's giving me confidence like you guys. I love that. I love watching a guy. That's some of the guys we work with, like in the rescue side, their churches are under 100. They might get to, there's one guy I'm thinking of right now. He's 175. I don't know. Maybe he's got 250 in him, but it's a lot better than 40.
Mm-hmm.
He's now got staff. He's now supporting missions. He's now doing outreach in his community, and it's not going to die. But I don't know if he's going to grow a church to 2,000, but I think he can grow one to 200 to 300. And right now he's almost there. And it's taken a while for us to get him there, but we got him there. But I love that. I love just helping pastors see what's possible.
I love that. That's so cool. Now, you caused me to think of a kind of a interesting question. let
Yeah,
me
yeah,
just get your, let me just get your take on it,
yeah.
kind of in both directions, right? Do you ever find that pastor who kind of he wants to be the just to use a random, he wants to be 1,000, but really he's at 250, 300, but he, and you have the and then the opposite, then maybe the one who thinks, oh no, I really can't do much more than 200, but you kind of see, no, you got it. I mean, do you see those
Oh yeah.
two sides of
Oh
the coin
yeah.
there?
Oh yeah, for sure. I don't work a lot in the rescue area, although it's a major initiative of ours. My major job is raising money for it. We have a whole
Uh-huh.
team that makes it all happen. But I'm around enough and hear enough to be like, oh, I'm gonna grow this thing to 2,000. I'm like, I don't know if I don't know. I don't want to limit God, but I don't know if I really
Of
see
course.
that for the person. So yeah, I think that yeah, you see that and you try to manage their expectation. Like, hey man, we want to do executive coaching. We're running 300. We want to be 3,000 by the end of the year. I'm like, I don't know.
Right.
You
Right.
got to really manage their expectation and who they are. Can they grow to that, or do they have the ability to grow to that? And I've had that. I've had guys say things where I'm like, I'm trying to help manage expectations because it's interesting in coaching when it doesn't go right. They'll never say in the board meeting, you know what, we're not doing coaching anymore because I'm the problem. They're never going to say that.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
We're always the problem. We're the scapegoat. We're the issue. We're the problem. So if it doesn't go right, and I would say a large portion does go right, but once in a while it doesn't go right, and I'm like, dude,
Sure.
you're not doing anything. You're not working hard. You're not applying stuff. It's just funny because I always tell my team, I'm like, they're never, ever, ever going to go on a board meeting. It's all me. They're great. Church Boom is great. It's me. That's never going to happen.
Yeah. 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 Well, I think that's where you build that's building that trust in that relationship,
Yeah.
so you can have a voice that helps kind of push them in the right direction. But
Yeah.
but I love what you guys are doing, and I think I can imagine right now there could be pastors and leaders that are listening in and saying, I think we could benefit from this, or even feeling what you were describing, just discouraged.
Yeah.
What would you say to pastors who are like maybe unsure of what the future of their church will look like, and maybe even feeling like I think this is going to finish.
Yeah.
What would you say to a pastor right now listening in
Yeah,
that place?
I would say, man, we want to help. I would say, man, go to churchboom.org and we want to help. If you're a church under 100, we want to help you. If you're a church in several hundred and you want executive coaching, we want to help. I don't think God wants the bride of Christ shutting down.
Yeah.
I think he wants to keep it open, and we can get discouraged primarily because we all have the disease of comparing, and you're always comparing to someone else. And I always tell people your competition isn't with other people. Your competition was what's possible for you. That's your only competition. What's possible for you? And I think if someone's listening right now and they're saying, man, I think we could use some help. I always say conversations are free. Go to churchboom.org, you fill out a little inquiry, like takes you 30 seconds. You get on a call with someone, learn about it. And conversations are free. But do something.
Yeah.
Do something. The parable of the talents, 5, 2, and 1.
Yeah.
It's such an interesting talent. I always tell people, I don't think God has a problem if you're a 3-talent person. He has a problem if you're a 3-talent person living at a 2-talent level.
Right.
Right. So it's like, okay, the 1 talent. Do something with it, man.
Yeah.
He didn't lose it, but he didn't grow it.
Yeah.
The the thing is, I think that often that we look at the faithfulness, you know,
Yeah.
that good and faithfulness, or that good and faithful servant enter into your, that whole thing.
Yeah.
Well done, good and faithful servant. So the faithful part, we focus on the faithful part. Hey, I'm faithful. I'm here every Sunday. I'm faithful. I'm faithful. But also, you have to look at the other side of that story, and it was fruitful.
Right.
The issue wasn't you were faithful. The issue is you weren't fruitful. I think it's our job to figure out, how do I be faithful, which a lot of us are probably doing, but how do I get to become fruitful? And what do I got to do to get help? Get help. Bible says pride comes before a fall.
It's not just personally, it's ministry. Oh, I don't need any help. Okay. But this is where you're headed. Look, man, I've got, you know, written a bunch of books, did Church Boom, launched a lot of campuses, multi-site. I've done a couple things in my life, but I continue to get coaching. I think that professionals get coached and amateurs learn by trial and error. And you got to decide which one do you want to be. And I would tell people, reach out. We're not the right fit for you. That's fine. I'm good. But get help. Get some real solid help. And put the pride aside and grow the church.
Yeah, as you're talking, I think on the practical side of things, and you alluded to the fact that there could be multiple reasons or multiple areas that a church and a pastor needs help in. From your experience on both, coaching and rescue, Pastor Chris, what would you say are a couple of those? These are automatic first areas that we look at or ask about. As far as how's the church doing? Generally they're either in decline or in trouble, right, on the rescue side, or maybe they're kind of stuck on the coaching side and they wanna break through some barriers. As a coach, in your experience, what are some of those these are some of the first places that we look and ask about in regards to how the church is doing?
If they feel like they're stuck, there's multiple things we're going to ask. But if you said the top 1, 2, 3 things, and they're like, man, we're stuck and we're not growing. So here's what I look at. First thing I look at first-time guest flow. What's your number? You should have about 5 for every 100 adults. 5 guests for every 100 adults. If you have below that, you're going to have a hard time keeping up with attrition. Now, flip it to the other side. How fast are you engaging these people into the life of the church? Average person takes 6 months to get engaged in the life of the church. I think it should be quick. Personally, I just think it's a different era. So if I'm the pastor, you come to my church, you and your wife, you're nice people, you've been 3 or 4 times, 5 times, 6 times. Man, I'd love for you to become greeters. When you become a greeter, just greeting twice a month, that's it. Just greet at the door, say hello. You are 500 times more likely to stay in the church, and the church grows 2 people for every 1 new person you get involved in church. So when someone says we're stuck, I'm like, okay, is it a first-time guest flow or is it a recruiting flow? Is that the problem? If you don't have the first-time guests, okay, then that's a problem. But I was on the phone with a church, I was in person with a church last week on the East Coast, and they're like, this is how many guests we have. I'm like, that's pretty good. The number's pretty solid, but we're not growing. Okay. You're not engaging people. Your team needs to be recruiting. You need to have a system like Pizza with the Pastor, whatever that's recruiting. You got to be recruiting people. And so first two things I look at is, are you getting enough people there? Because you're not going to get stuck if you don't get enough guests there. And then are you engaging them in the life of the church?
That's good.
There's a lot that goes behind that and a lot of other information. But if they're saying I'm stuck, then I'm like, okay, first problem is, you're either not getting enough people or you're not getting engaged enough. It's one of the two. Let's figure out which one it is and fix it.
Yeah, that's good. Kind of like the front door and the back door. Now, I like, and I'm kind of a nerd. I'm kind of a leadership nerd in this way, Pastor Chris, that you gave some kind of, not benchmarks, but kind of like numbers. Can you share a little more of those? Like you just mentioned that you should be seeing about 5 first-time guests for every 100 adults. On a Sunday attendance, right? Can you give us a few more of those little nuggets to look for? Because I know there's people taking notes right now.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's talk about that side of it. So 5 for everyone. The gold standard is about 6. Gold standard is around 6 out of every 10 guests. That's gold. Most of the churches are doing 1 or 2. We'll stay around. The way you stay around is getting people engaged in the life of the church through serving or through groups. 500 times more likely, you grow 2 people for every 1 person you get involved. You got to get people engaged in the life of the church quicker. People support what they create. So if they feel like they're part of a team, they're not going anywhere. They're going to stay. So one thing I would tell guys is this, they're like, man, I don't know if we're really doing good on that. My church runs 350 people and we don't engage a lot of people. Okay, get your team together and do what's called a 90-day run. And say, for the next 90 days, through our Pizza with the Pastor or growth track or whatever you do, through that and through your 5 or 6 key leader, volunteer, staff, whatever they are, those 5 or 6 people, between this and this, how many people can you get engaged in the life of the church in the next 90 days? Did that with a church that was insanely stuck. And between 400 and 500. It was their attendance. Let's call it 500. I think it was a little bit bigger. And I just basically just told them, look, man, you got to get people engaged alive with the church. So what if the system does 25, and what if the staff does 25? No, I think we did. The system was 20, the staff did 30, something like that. That came out to 50. In that first 90 days, Virgil, we call it 90-day run. They didn't get 50, they got 48. Next 90 days, they got 51. Next 90 days, they got 46. Next 90 days, they got 58. I mean, it was way higher, but it averaged 50. I want you to think about that for a moment. In a church of 500, 50 new people involved in ministry or somewhat new, been in the church for less than 9 months. They keep getting involved in the church. If you do 50 every 90 days, there's 4 90 days in a year, that's 200. There's no way your church of 500 is still the same size when you've added 200 new volunteers. It's impossible.
Yep.
So those are some of the things that I tell people to work on and to focus on. I'm telling you, you go after that and watch what will happen.
Yeah, that's good.
People,
I think that
people used to come. I'll tell you real quick. Just real quick, is people come for the message, but they stay for the relationship. Get them connected, and watch what happens. Anyway, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No. I was just gonna say. I think some of those numbers are helpful for me because sometimes as a pastor, you're like, well, I don't know how many new people are we supposed to have if we have this many people coming into the doors, or what is the healthy number of how many of the people should be in small groups, ideally, or how many of our people should be serving in some way. I think that help. If we have a growth track, how many do we want to see? What come into it? Out of a Sunday. All those things have helped me along the journey to kind of grab some handles. I love that about you guys, Pastor Chris. Is you're giving us handles. You're giving pastors handles.
Yeah, good. Well, that's the objective. Is I think spirit and strategy have to coexist. And I believe in the move of God. I believe in the Holy Spirit. I believe in all of it. I also think that you sometimes need to get practical. Like, look, dude, here's the problem. This is how you're going to fix it. And I think there's a practicality to it as well.
I love it. I want people to know about how they can connect with Church Boom and what you guys offer. Where can they go? How can they get the ball rolling?
Yeah, churchboom.org is where you go. Churchboom.org. You could hit the rescue tab if your church is under 100, get free coaching. If you're interested in executive coaching, get that. We've got Church Boom University. It's an ongoing monthly thing where you just kind of learn and grow. It's only $29 a month. You get books, you get all sorts of resources. And then I love the Church Boom Network. That is like, hey man, I don't really have a tribe I'm running with. We've got a network, and we doesn't cost anything. Just help us rescue other churches, but there's no fee. Just be part of the Church Boom Network. So there's lots there. Just go to churchboom.org. They can find everything they want to find.
Love it. You mentioned Church Boom University. For somebody who maybe is hearing that for the first time, I think you said it's kind of like a monthly subscription. Is it classes? Is it courses? Kind of what's part of that?
Yeah, Church Boom University, $29 a month. When people are like, oh, $29 a month, I'm like, yeah, that's your Netflix, so everybody calm down. And but what that is master classes, all on Church Boom. Sam Chan's on there, myself's on there, multiple other people are on there. Hey, here's 6 10-minute videos on how to increase your offering. Here's 6 10-minute videos on how to build better leaders in your church. Cool. Here's 6 10-minute videos on how to capture more people at the church and break the stuck barrier. All of that's there. All the master classes are there. And in addition to all these wonderful master classes, there's a place where people interact. We're always putting content on there. We interact with each other. It's a sort of a hub that people interact. And then every quarter, we send a resource out right to the doorstep, a book and all that. A book for every 90 days, we send a book. So it's just a place for ongoing leadership development.
Yeah, that's good. Speaking of books, we talked about it on a past episode, your book, Traction, 5 Proven Principles for Unstoppable Growth. Another one of those resources I'm sure people can lean into when they connect with you.
Yeah, absolutely. Yep. Get it.
I recommend it, everybody. I recommend it, Traction by Chris.
Yeah. Get it. I always say, feed the hungry children mine. So buy the book.
I will mention resources are very helpful as a leader. Also, the AVAIL Journal, everybody, if you haven't subscribed yet, what are you waiting for? You can try our free trial subscription by going to availjournal.com. We want you to test it out, try it out. You're going to love it. We have great contributors like Pastor Chris Sonksen, contributing amazing articles and content, diverse. If you're a Christian leader, if you're a leader, you're going to love this. The AVAIL Journal, availjournal.com. As we're kind of hitting the final stretch here, Pastor Chris,
Yep.
Another thought came to my mind. As you're kind of in this season, right? In this season of your pastorate and your leadership, you're really making a difference beyond your own church that you planted and that you worked on for so many years. Can you see yourself doing this, for more years as you look to the future, both
Yeah.
for Church Boom and for you? What do you envision?
I do. I think we had an amazing run as a lead pastor for 23 years or whatever it was, 22, 23 years. I think that I see this going for 10 or 15 years and then me handing it off to somebody. But I see that this is for me, this is sort of the seventh, eighth, and ninth inning of career. And I plan on doing this for, I don't know, another 10, 15 years and then seeing what God has. But I think the need is too great. I think revelation requires responsibility.
Yeah.
If you know about a problem, you got to do something about the problem. And I think we know about a problem. And I don't know if I've ever told you this on our other podcast, but I was telling a guy probably in his 90s about the church, and he's a mentor of mine, kind of a spiritual, 90-year-old kind of wisdom guy. And the church is closing, all the stuff. He does this, like only a 90-year-old man can get away with. And he goes like this, and he goes, "That's happening on your watch. It didn't happen on mine."
Wow.
It rocked my world. I'm like, Virgil, that's happening on your watch.
Wow.
It's happening on his. It's happening on mine. And I think revelation requires responsibility. And I think when we meet the Lord in this Christian nation that we used to call it, and I don't know how Christian it is anymore. It doesn't seem like it much. But it's kind of like, that's happening on our watch.
Yeah.
And I think we can't sit back and go, man, hey, you know what? Here's the thing. Is like when I first brought the first 15 guys together to talk about rescuing churches and doing all the things, all that stuff, that we all met in Dallas, and every one of them's got really big churches. I was like, we could all go back to our churches, honestly, work there another 15 years, retire. God bless you. We're good. But revelation requires responsibility, and we did something about it. And that's where it all started. Just a handful of guys that I brought into Dallas, and I just said, "Hey, we got a problem here. Let's solve it together." And it just went and just took off.
Yeah. I love it. I love that. And it's funny that you say that, because one of my overseers is Pastor Robert Berger. He's an American pastor that's a missionary pastor in Lima, Peru. And I've been working alongside him to do like certain events in Latin America and for Hispanic pastors in the States. So I have kind of a burden for the Hispanic pastors in the same, because the same thing is happening, and I imagine in most cultures, right? There's a lot of older or more traditional Hispanic churches that are suffering, and pastors that are struggling and stuck. And so, I'm gleaning from what I'm learning from you, Pastor Chris, and from other great pastors, and saying, hey, we need help in that area as well. So I love it. I love your cry. I hear your cry. I share it. And hopefully pastors out there are ready to receive some help if they need it, and be part of the solution, if they're doing well. What do you want to leave us with as we close off?
Well, I think Bill Hybels, although he has some struggles here in the last few years, I love the phrase he coined: "The local church is the hope of the world." And we are ambassadors to the local church and guardians of its culture. And I think that we cannot just sit idly by and go, I got X amount of people, I'm good. That is just not the race he wants us to run. Run the race with endurance. And I would tell all the pastors, run the race with endurance, get the help that you need.
Yeah.
Start fighting to grow, because it's not about numbers. It's about lost people finding Jesus, and it's about keeping America moving in the right direction. It's about our kids, our grandkids, and our great-grandkids, and let them have a place that could truly be one nation under God. So run the race with endurance. There's too much at stake. The stakes are way too high for us to be too relaxed.
Yeah, that's so good. That's so good. I love that. Hey, everybody, the website is churchboom.org. You got to go check it out, and you got to share it with any friends, pastors, ministry leaders that you feel might be blessed or encouraged by this. churchboom.org. Pastor Chris, on behalf of the AVAIL team, Dr. Sam Chand, Martijn Van Tilburg, we're just proud of you. We honor you, and we're thankful to see what God is doing in your life.
Amen. Thank you, brother. Appreciate it. Thanks so much.
I hope you've been blessed, everybody. Thank you for joining us for this episode of the AVAIL podcast. For more leadership resources, check us out at theartofleadership.com, and make sure to claim your free trial subscription of the AVAIL Journal at availjournal.com. As always, I'm your AVAIL podcast host, Virgil Sierra. Muchas gracias. Thank you for connecting with us to learn the art of leadership here at the AVAIL podcast.